All right. What's up, guys? My name is Justin Lewinski, and I decided to do my final project on the 2016 MLB season analysis. So, first question, why am I doing it? Because I'm a huge sports fan, and baseball is a great place for data. Obviously, Moneyball is a great movie, and it interests me. I'm an A's fan. Obviously, they've been making moves recently that I don't like, but still very interesting and something that I was excited to do. So, let's get into our data set. It's from Kaggle. It's a lot of team data. So, it has who won, who played, how many hits both teams got. We don't have any individual data, however. The players in the game are not a part of this data set, which doesn't leave out. You can still do a lot with that. So let's get into our first question here. Does wind have an effect on runs scored? And what's the biggest impact on runs scored? My hypothesis was wind would have an impact on runs scored because, more wind probably means more errors because the ball's harder to track. Maybe the ball goes further, maybe it goes less far, something like that. It's unusual. It changes things. However, as you can see, I used errors and hits for both teams. I use wind speed, I use temperature, and I used attendance. Maybe, more people in the crowd. You want to score more for them. Coefficients here, let's get to the visualization. You can see here that hits are king. The more hits you get, the more runs you're going to score. Pretty intuitive when you think about it, because hits get people on base, and people on base can get you over the plate, get you a score. So that makes sense. I was surprised at the difference between errors and hits. I thought it would be a little closer because an error is still, you still get on base, and it could be more deflating to a team. But that was just more of an interpretive guess, and I guess I was wrong there. As you can see from the scoring of the model, not great. An MAE for train of 2.09, for test of 2.15. I think if you really want to predict the amount of runs scored in a game, you need that team data or that player data, the specifics of the ERA and the batting average of the people playing the game to get a really closer answer. Our two scores aren't great either. 0.64 of the variance is getting explained, which isn't great. But one positive, our model is not terribly overfit, which I guess is good. As you can see, not great, but not horrible, but I don't think I would use this exact model for anything super serious. But it is interesting to see the lack of explanation, like the lack of how some things determine the amount of total runs scored a game. Like, for example, my hypothesis of wind speed, it's the worst one. It affects the least of the score. So I was wrong there, but still interesting. Question 2, which stadium had the best home field advantage? What teams were, when they were home, they were winning. Let me tell you, the Chicago Cubs in 2016, they were winning when they were playing at home. 62 home wins, 4 clear of the next best, which was Progressive Field. As you can see, the Cubs had a great year, and you're about to see. It just goes to show interpretively just how good they were from a baseball fan perspective. Let's move on to away teams here. The best road teams, Chicago Cubs, are 5 clear. They have a bigger margin on the road than they did at home, and they were still number 1. They won 115 games, pretty historic season. They broke the curse of not winning. So very interesting. The Cleveland Indians, who are now the Guardians, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Washington Nationals, and the Boston Red Sox, rounding out your top 5 there. Then question 3, this one was very interesting to me. The difference between a normal logistic regression model and a PCA logistic model when predicting home wins. So we're trying to find out, is the home team winning or not? As you can see, I use attendance, errors and hits of both teams, temperature, wind speed, and game length. So our accuracy, we're looking at 78%, which isn't half bad. It's not great, however. It's not, it's not going to get it dead on every time. But it's not bad. We're missing equally and false positive and false negative, which isn't great. You don't want that. But I think, again, you're probably looking for player data here, which we don't have in this data set, but doesn't mean we still can't try the model. And it's very interesting. And something I found even more interesting, when we introduce a PCA model here, and we only use 7 of the principal components, as you can see here, after the line there is at 90% of the cumulative variance. So we're using 7 instead of 8, and our model performance improves. We get better, which is super interesting. It doesn't typically happen, but because the model isn't terribly efficient, it shows that that's possible because that extra principal component isn't adding too much. So you can still get a pretty good model, better, more efficient, computationally efficient model. So I thought that was very interesting, actually. Question 4, which stadium hosted the highest scoring games? If you love runs, go to Coors Field, bottom line. 12.16 runs a game. Maybe that's great hitting. Maybe that's bad pitching. that's the place you want to go. Chase Field is next, Fenway Park, Target Field, Globe Life Park in Arlington, rounding out your top 10. Very, very interesting stuff here. Just to see, like, because you don't think about stadiums or teams when you think of runs scored, but, obviously there's some sort of correlation here. And I think it's very interesting to see. And then when you look at least deviation, maybe you don't want to be surprised by something and you want to go to a game that, you know what you're getting. And when you look at the least deviation, Citizens Bank Park is your place. 3.69 deviation means I think their average runs per game was about 9.3. So you're looking at around 6 to 12 runs a game, which is still a pretty big spread because unpredictable athletes, you know how it is. But still, it's the best you're going to get, which I thought was interesting because it's not really something you think about. Clustering. So there was not a ton of great clustering variables here, but I chose game length and attendance. I used a Gaussian mixture model because K-means there's no spherical data here, and DB-scan, it's so close together, it's not going to be very efficient. Silhouette score, 3, K equals 3 is the best here by far. Drops off the face of the earth after that and before. At the green, I called it short and small. There's not a lot of people there, and the game's short. So that's why that's there. The red one, I call it short but loud because the game's not going to last a long time. There's going to be a ton of people there, which is interesting. And then this blue one here, I'd call it the epics. Varying attendance. There could be a lot, could be a little, but there's, it's going to last a while. So you're going to be there for a while. Question 6, do environmental and situational variables impact attendance? So, if it's raining, if it's Monday, if it's Wednesday, does that affect how many people go to a game? I was very interested in this because I thought it would explain a ton of the variance in the data set. It did not. As you can see by our scoring here, regular season games are the most important thing. If it's regular season or if it's playoffs, that's going to affect if you go or not. However, your mean absolute error for this model is horrible. 5,000 is almost double what the A's get per game these days. So you definitely don't want to be off by that much. And your R2 score is 0.5. So we're only explaining about half the variance, which is no good. So definitely not the best model. And it goes to show that that doesn't explain a lot of the variance, the environmental factors, which I thought was interesting because I thought the opposite. My hypothesis was the opposite. Question 7, how important are away team runs scored to determine a home team win? So essentially, every time the away team scores a run, how is that changing the home team winning? So we're redoing that logistic model we did earlier, but this time we're adding away team runs. So you'd expect it to improve, and it does. Away team runs immediately becomes the most important variable in finding home team win. As you can see, our model improves by about 7% from our old logistic regression projecting home team win, which is great. Your true positive, true negative rate all improve. Something I find interesting here was home team hits have a very heavy weight as well, which means maybe some home field advantage there because obviously a hit isn't scoring, but maybe it gets the crowd going, maybe it gets your confidence up at home because it has a somewhat similar impact to away team runs. And that is it. Thank you very much.